As we get ready for that hearty Thanksgiving meal, a warning not to fall into a terrifying fire trap. A trap that'll force you to make a split-second decision that can leave you burned if you get it wrong. ABC 6 reporter Adam Arrow is on your side tonight to show you how to protect yourself. Adam?
And guys, statistics show cooking is by far the leading cause of fires in the home. And in November, they're at their worst. And grease fires spark more than half of them. And if it's not put out correctly, you may be left severely burned or even worse. An overpowering fireball licks its way up a wall. Just one of the many reasons to never underestimate the potential fury of a grease fire. Matt Smith learned that the hard way back in college.
It was a pretty scary moment. First thought is you gotta get the fire out, you gotta move it, you gotta, prevent the apartment or house, catching a fire.
Smith says he left a pan on the stove too long. The grease inside it had ignited.
I reached for the pan, I grabbed it, and I started walking. And the grease spilt out of the pan, landed on my ankle, landed on the floor, and I actually slipped. I slipped on the grease.
These are injuries that take weeks to months to fully heal.
Dr. Larry Jones is the director of the Burn Center at The Ohio State Medical Center.
There's probably not a week goes by that I don't get called about a patient who has burned themselves with hot grease.
And Dr. Jones says what's leading to these sometimes severe burns are correctable mistakes. We went to the Ohio State Fire Marshal's office and set up a demonstration inside one of its fire training rooms. We heated up our grease and waited. Experts say one mistake people make is leaving the oil unattended. Sure enough, ours ignites.
You get caught up in the moment and the scariness of the fact that there's a fire in your house and you make a move.
Remember how in Smith's case, he tried to move the pan outside. Look at what happens when our firefighter picks up the pan and moves it. The scalding hot grease spills, potentially burning you or making the floor a slippery mess. Now here's the most dangerous mistake. Watch as our firefighter dumps just a few ounces of water on the fire to try and put it out.
It's very delicate and very painful.
Back at the Burn Center,
Okay, we're ready.
what a grease fire leaves behind.
I usually stop about there.
This person suffered a third-degree burn to his hand.
We need to make sure that we've got no bleeding.
And in this surgery,
Looks pretty good.
the burned victim doesn't have to look far to find a sympathetic ear.
It's easy for me to relate.
You see, Matt Smith is a resident surgeon,
I have some empathy towards them
currently working in the OSU burn unit.
because I was there.
15% of our admissions are grease burns.
They're the same stories. They're the same rationale, and they feel bad about it.
So Smith hopes his story makes people stop and think
All I would have had done at that point is just put the lid over the flame itself.
and snuff out a mistake that could leave a permanent scar. And again, if you're faced with a grease fire, the best advice, simply take the lid, put that back on the pan over the fire to take away its oxygen and snuff it out. Just remember to never ever grab that pan and move it around or dump that water on it. Reporting live in the studio tonight, Adam Arrow, ABC 6 News. For most of us, a car is essential.
It's a family vehicle, got 3 kids.
So James Minter had a simple request when his minivan was in an accident.
It held up very well in the accident, and if it were in another accident, I wanted to make sure it held up equally as well.
But Minter says the accident was only the beginning of a month-long grind.
I think it's ethically very irresponsible.
At 3C Body Shop,
It becomes so complicated.
owner Bob Juniper says the process of getting your car back to the way it was can sometimes be anything but smooth.
Insurance companies are using a lot of non-original parts. We call them knockoff parts, imitation parts, to make it clear as to what they are.
Juniper says it can make sense to bolt on used parts when replacing things like doors.
It would be very easy to take the 4 bolts out and put a good quality used door on here.
But on something welded, like a quarter panel,
This is an example of what they're attempting to do.
Juniper says there's a problem.
Structurally, it can affect the car, not to mention the value of the car.
An insurance company is not out to jeopardize the safety of its customers. I mean, they have a reputation at stake.
Mary Bonelli is with the Ohio Insurance Institute.
Insurance companies go a long way in trying to explain this process and the use of non-OEM parts.
OEM stands for Original Equipment Manufacturer. On your insurance estimate, this shows up as OEM. The Ohio Department of Insurance says no policy promises to use OEM parts. Instead, they'll use aftermarket parts, which are new, but they're not made by the manufacturer of your car. Or they'll use used parts, meaning that they were bought from a salvage dealer. For instance, on your insurance estimate, used parts show up as things like L, K, Q, meaning like, kind, or quality, or Q, RP, quality replacement parts.
And I really felt like they were trying to wear me down.
Minter says he went back and forth with the other driver's insurance company for nearly a month, arguing for original parts.
I'm a very stubborn individual, especially when it comes to something as serious as having a vehicle that's safe for my family.
What happens with us is we end up fixing cars twice. I mean, we literally get paid twice.
Juniper says that's because the used welded parts don't fit right.
You can see how wide it is here at the top and how it narrows down to being very tight down here at the bottom.
He says once an insurance adjuster sees that, they'll have the body shop do the repair again. Insurance companies, though, spin that a little differently.
There's always the potential for inefficiencies, but it could be on the part of the insurance company's decision, but it also could be the technician in the repair shop as well.
Minter says he and the other driver's insurance company eventually came to a compromise.
I do have original parts, but they're original used parts.
An okay truce, he says, since the van is a 2007 model.
It's been very frustrating and very inconvenient, but I'm glad it's over.
One thing insurance companies, body shops, and people like Minter agree on: know your rights, know your policy, so you don't get fenced in with repairs you're not happy with by not asking questions.
Okay, ready to go, buddy boy?
Being a parent is an adventure.
They're both very active kids, just like you do at the park, huh?
Gahanna mom Erin Athey and her husband work full-time.
Big girl, let's go.
So they had to make a choice when their kids were born.
Yay, good job.
Who could they trust to watch and care for their most prized possessions?
It's one of the most important things. You know, you're leaving your kids in someone else's care, so you definitely want to build that trust.
There are, you know, the members of our society who have the smallest voice, and we need to do our due diligence to look out for them.
Terry Afaduba works for Action for Children, an organization that works closely with child care and early learning issues in Ohio. She says it can't be stressed enough the importance of research when choosing child care, whether it's a babysitter or a facility.
Once you place your child in that care, visit occasionally. Pick the child up a few hours earlier. Go by on your lunch hour. Do things that are not, you know, according to a quote-unquote normal schedule, a fixed schedule.
Because a seemingly normal situation can explode quickly.
She realized that her child was different in some way. The child was acting out before she left. She knew something was wrong, that mother's instinct.
Last May, we showed you how a suspicious Westerville mom put up a nanny cam in her home. What she discovered was appalling. Detectives say the babysitter she had hired was abusing her little boy. And she'd been doing it for 3 weeks before being caught.
Any complaint we receive is investigated, no matter how frivolous it might appear.
Ben Johnson with the Ohio Department of Family Services says there are thousands of daycares under its supervision.
We inspect them twice a year. They're unannounced inspections. We post all of the information on our website to try and help parents make an informed decision about where they want to send their child.
Now, we can't go over the entire Ohio law when it comes to child care, but what we can do is draw you a few examples. A house with 7 or more kids is regulated. Daycares with 7 or more kids are also regulated. But home daycares with 6 or less kids are unregulated. That is, unless they get public funds for the child care, then it needs to be certified by the county. Daycares at gyms, Grocery stores are also not regulated because the parent is nearby while the child is being watched.
Real high. How high can you go?
For Athy, she went the babysitter route for her kids.
It was a lot of word of mouth, and then I went and visited a couple of homes and interviewed, and then that's kind of how we found our perfect fit as far as a babysitter.
And experts say there's another key.
Kids will tell you a lot.
Talk to your kids about their experience if they're old enough.
Asking them what they did while they were there and you know, what they liked about being there, what their conversations were like.
Experts also say look for learning environments, not just childcare.
So you want, you know, art activities, reading activities, things that engage your child to be creative and to learn, to set them up for success later in life.
And when in doubt, trust your parental instinct.
If you feel like it's not 100% the way you want it, then you probably need to find someone different.
Because when it comes to your kids' health and safety, there should never be any doubt. There's no getting around it.
Dude, seriously, already?
Kids love to get dirty.
Here, you can have this one.
2-year-old Tyler Jones is no exception.
Got a worm. You got a worm?
Yes, I do.
But last December, it wasn't dirt that needed cleaning.
We went outside and they were sledding out back, and we come in and we were gonna make lunch.
Christina Jones says before lunch, she left the kitchen to grab her kids' wet clothes. But when she came back moments later,
I'm like, you gotta be kidding me.
she found her son covered in detergent.
I didn't do that.
He had climbed on top of the washer and got into the pack and ate one.
So these have caused a lot more injury than what we would ever have guessed could come from laundry detergent.
Dr. Marcel Cassavant with Nationwide Children's Hospital says since they were first introduced 3 years ago, laundry pods continue to be a top target for curious kids.
They look very, very pretty. They have colors, they have shapes, they look like candies, they look like toys.
How the pod works is simple. The pod itself has all the ingredients tightly packed into this packaging, and it's made of a dissolvable plastic, so all you have to do is throw it in your laundry. A huge convenience, but it can also be a danger for kids because if they get a hold of one of these things and it dissolves, it can be poisonous.
Nationwide, there's been some kids who've ended up in intensive care units on life support machines because they couldn't get air past the swelling in their throat or in their upper airway.
Oh man, what'd they do? He was real pale, and then after he got sick, he just laid there. He would close his eyes, and you'd try to nudge him, and he wouldn't move.
Tyler was rushed to the hospital. His mom tried her best to grasp what was happening.
I was trying to hold it together because the girls were crying. They were scared, and I was scared to death, but I just didn't want them to be worse scared than what they were.
And this was far from the only time this has happened. In just central and southwestern Ohio this year, there have been 99 calls to poison control centers about kids swallowing or getting the detergent in their eyes. And across the country, nearly 5,000 kids were exposed to them just through June. Tyler pulled through. But the intense 4 hours of that afternoon last December has stayed with him.
We went to the store a couple weeks after it happened, and we picked up a pack and showed him, and he said no.
Experts say the best way to keep your kids safe, lock them up in a cupboard and keep them out of your kids' sight.
We had him out of his reach. I mean, he had to climb on top of the washer and then stand on his tiptoes to reach the shelf to get to him.
Because you should never underestimate your child's courage and curiosity.
I jumped to you.
You jumped to me?
For a child, the moving lights and pictures are dazzling. But for Marion mom Tanya McCreary and her family, they see a TV a little differently.
All of a sudden I hear a loud bang and a cry, so I run into the living room and my son had, the TV was actually laying on top of him.
That was 11 years ago. McCreary's son Corey was only 4 at the time, but remembers it well.
I'd always have my foot on the TV stand every single time. Even though my mom told me not to, I did it anyways.
And one day, not listening to mom came back to haunt him.
It was crazy.
The family TV had fallen and crushed Corey.
What we found was astonishing.
Dr. Gary Smith is a researcher at Nationwide Children's Hospital. He and his team looked into the dangers of falling TVs.
Over the last 2 decades, the number of TV-related tip-over injuries to young children has almost doubled.
Then we have a job for you.
His team found that more than 17,000 children each year are taken to the emergency room with TV-related injuries, most of them under the age of 3, some suffering severe head and neck injuries. And the Consumer Product Safety Commission found falling TVs killed more than 150 young children between 2000 and 2010.
These are horrific injuries.
To give you an idea of just how powerful a falling TV is, we got a bunch of recycled ones and a bunch of watermelons. So now you can see what happens when curiosity meets an unsecured TV. In Corey's case, the falling TV broke his collarbone.
It was like 4 to 6 weeks for the bone to heal.
Experts say to protect your kids, buy straps to lock the TV into place on the TV stand. Or just attach it to a wall. Another tip, keep remote controls, toys, or anything else that might catch a child's eye off of the TV stands or furniture. And speaking of furniture, don't dump your old set on it. In Corey's case, the TV that fell on him was sitting on an old end stand.
These are types of furniture that were never designed to safely support a TV. And for that reason, these TVs are more prone to tip over.
Corey says after that day 11 years ago, his outlook changed.
I never put my feet on the stand again. Well, one, because she removed it, but I probably wouldn't have done it again anyway.
So much to see on our televisions, but experts warn, don't let the bright lights distract you from the potential danger of an unsecured television. When it comes to summer, there aren't many sounds or smells that define it better. But when the day is done and cleanup begins, you may be leaving behind an extra sharp ingredient the next time you fire it up.
How are you feeling with your tube out?
16-year-old Tristan Beck of Seattle can tell you just how sharp it is.
It's pretty violent. It hurt really bad.
What doctors discovered was to blame shocked them. A tiny piece of metal glistening in an X-ray. That piece of metal was no larger than this. While his family was scrubbing the grill clean, a bristle came loose and made its home right there on the grate. Once food was introduced, the bristle snuck inside. Although rare, there have been enough cases that the Centers for Disease Control put out a warning last year following 6 reported cases in Rhode Island.
If it gets caught, because it's sharp, it can penetrate through the bowel and create a perforation.
Dr. David Evans is a trauma surgeon at the Wexner Medical Center. He's operated on his fair share of strange things that people swallow.
We've seen, toothbrushes.
An entire toothbrush?
Yeah, an entire toothbrush, forks, spoons, sporks, kitchen knives.
Dr. Evans says even though the human digestive system can handle many things, there are limits. Experts say that size limit starts kicking in when the object is about 4 centimeters long, which is about equivalent to these 2 quarters back to back. That's when you'll likely start experiencing signs that something is wrong.
They should be looking out for pain in their neck or in their abdomen, problems swallowing saliva.
To protect yourself, constantly check your wire or metal brush for loose bristles. And check your grate after you clean it for any loose material. Also, replace the brush if the wear and tear on it is severe. Simple enough, but easy to take for granted.
I had a grill brush and wires started falling out of it. In the past, I probably wouldn't have thought much of it.
Back out west, Tristan is expected to fully recover, and he stayed level-headed about the whole thing.
I have really bad luck just because this 1 in a million chance happened to me, but I also have really good luck because they found it so early and I had really good doctors that put me into the OR and got it out.
The sounds and smells of summer are upon us. Just be careful your grilling masterpiece doesn't include any stowaways.